right, welcome everyone to how to get the buy-in you need for customer success ops, tools, and consultants. I am Diana de Jesus, and joining me today is Emilia. And before we kick things off, we're going to start off with an icebreaker, just like everyone else has. So, Emilia, do you want to go first? What is your go-to activity during these days?
Well, given we are in year 3 of the pandemic, I cannot believe I'm saying that. I have really resorted to outdoor activities. So tomorrow we will be skiing in Tahoe for my daughter's 16th birthday. And I'm just so excited to be able to go play, enjoy some fresh air, and hopefully be safe while I'm at it. So that's my
That's
go-to right
awesome.
now.
I'm a little jelly. I hope you all have a great time and happy birthday to your daughter.
Thank you. And what about your activity?
This one's a little embarrassing, but I feel like go to right now is this game called Wordle. I posted about it yesterday and it's just been really fun. It gives me a boost of confidence when I get the answer. And then if I don't, then it kind of ruins my day. But that's been my go-to activity nowadays. And then Amelia, I know that you don't know Wordle that well, but I will give you a tour if you want down the road.
All right, then I can look smart for my children.
Cool. All right, so let's get started. Gonna do a quick round of intros before we jump into the meat and potatoes of our conversation today. So I'm Diana de Jesus, Customer Success Manager Strategist here at Catalyst, and I've been in B2B for the last 6 years, little over 2 years as a CSM. And outside of Catalyst, I create content on platforms like LinkedIn and TikTok to just share, spread the word on how important customer success is. So overall, huge fan of customer success. And then Amelia, I'll hand it over to you so that you can introduce yourself.
All right. I first of all want to say thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited to be part of this event, and I've been watching the previous ones. I just love all of the comments too that people are pouring in the previous event. So I am Emilia. I'm the founder of Growth Molecules, a customer success consulting firm. We are global, but I'm based in Sonoma County, California. And I've been in tech for a really long time. And I fell in love with customer success and haven't looked back. But my background is not customer success, project management, Scrum, working with engineers. So very different. And I love working on the front end now of managing things like operations and implementations.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Amelia. And I know we're all super pumped to hear all the insights that you're going to share with us as one of the top consultants in the customer success space. So before we break into some questions with Amelia, I want to talk about how important this topic is. And I don't know if y'all have been following like LinkedIn posts or even like Gain, Grow, Retain and the conversations happening there. But I felt like in 2020, where are we? 2020. Yeah. I saw a lot of conversations about like high touch versus low touch. And then there was tech touch. And then 2021 started seeing a lot of jobs up for like digital CSM or scale CSM at especially these large organizations like Monday and Slack. And then on top of that, we also saw a huge rise or an increase for CS ops. I think everybody was kind of realizing at the same time that, holy crap, this could be our golden ticket to help us scale. And then today during a session, Sydney, the head of customer success here at Catalyst, she was talking about her journey of growing a team from 3 to 20 and a lot of the things that kind of went in and all the things that she learned. And she did that over the course of 6 months. And one of the slides that really stood out to me was the one where she talked about don't delay building out processes. So, build out the assets that support the processes that you need to standardize. And then on top of that, make sure that you're operationalizing that by adding it to a customer success platform. So as someone that was in the trenches as all of this was happening here at Catalyst and saw that growth, I can say that I was able to be a more consistent customer success manager. And I was also able to just have more time and overall focus on customer experience. So definitely important for us to focus on scalability. For me, it's not just my story though. Like, I'm one customer success manager working at a customer success platform. I wanted to also dig through some of the reasons why our customers started looking at, let's say, like trying to invest in their customer success platform or tools or processes. And there were two trends that I saw there. The first one was information was scattered across multiple tools. So it was very difficult for them to, a CSM, let's say, trying to put together a deck for a presentation, and they're going to like 5 different tools to get that all together. And then the second thing that I noticed that was a trend was they were struggling with just the lack of automated processes. It's really hard to standardize anything when everything is everywhere and it feels like we're constantly reinventing the wheel. So ultimately, there's no one role in customer success that suffers when we have like lack of resources. It's just a general everybody is suffering party. And we can break it down a little bit role by role. You could be the best customer success manager, but if you are spending that time, doing that, like whatever process you need every single time over and over again, and creating processes from scratch, having to like not having the access to trends to make those informed decisions, then you're wasting a lot of time. And quite frankly, it's really hard to be the best CSM if you are spending all that time. And working here at Catalyst as a customer success manager, I also worked with a lot of folks in CS ops. And so one thing I can tell you is that they are super susceptible to burnout when they don't have the right resources in place. And so everything becomes a manual process. Everything is just under automated, if that's a thing for us. And then last but not least, right, we have our CS leaders. They are pretty much the voice of the outcome of the CS department. And if they don't have the insights, and if their team is kind of just like doing everything in a very manual way, it's really hard for them to convey the importance and the value of the customer success department. Okay, so a lot of problems. I think everybody in this chat right now probably has gone through at least one of the sufferings or one of the struggles that I highlighted. So how do we get to a place where we can ask the big ask, right? Get the buy-in. And for that, we have Emilia here, who I'm going to put in the hot seat, and I'm going to ask her a couple of questions to just help us get some answers. And for anyone that is watching, comment section is open. Please ask some questions in there too, and I can also check in there and ask Emilia. So let's start with the very first one. And this one is going to be around bandwidth. We see sometimes that when there is this kind of struggle with bandwidth, the easiest thing or the simplest thing to do is to kind of throw in a CSM in there and see what happens. So how can CS leaders justify the added cost of bringing on an ops team?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be bringing in a ops team. It can be bringing in an operations manager. I'm so happy that right now they're in big demand. But my first taste of being an operations manager was at Bright Edge. This will really age me, but it was 8 years ago. I shared the position with another person who was doing the operations across support, but we had 80 people on our customer team, ranging from professional services, support, training, customer success across 3 segments. And it was a no-brainer to bring in 2 of us, so myself and Terry, across these 80 CSMs to help scale the organization. So we were speaking the same language, using the same playbooks, and then really driving or implementing enablement for the CSMs so that we felt really confident having difficult conversations. And I'm thankful that the leaders at the time, Joshua Crossman, Lorna Henry, they taught me so much about the value of operations. Just the cost of an operations manager, depending on where that person lives, will obviously influence the salary. But if you think about how they can scale a playbook, a system, so that everyone is centralizing their data versus everyone doing something different, the impact an operations manager has on an organization is quickly recognized. And if you want to justify the cost, become best friends with the CFO or whoever's head of the budget and start better understanding how much are you spending on customer success, and then even do an analysis versus sales. Sales typically has an operations manager. Uh, Start thinking about why doesn't CS, when at some point your customer team may be managing more revenue than what sales is able to bring in per year. So there's so many ways you can justify it, but it starts with becoming best friends with the CFO and then understanding what are all the CSMs doing and how can we do it at scale. And that's when the impact of operations really comes in and becomes meaningful for an organization.
Thank you, Amelia. And I agree. We cannot let sales have all the fun. Um, let's double click into something you said there about CS ops and enablement. How can they do it? How can CS ops enable a CS team?
So if depending on where your company is in the maturity model, the larger companies have both not only enablement but also operations, just like in sales, right? You're not asking a sales manager at a larger organization to implement Salesforce and maybe outreach and build playbooks. No, you have an operations and enablement team. But for the companies, Bright Edge, WalkMe, where I was, we didn't have enablement for the first few years that I was there. And so as an operations team, we were building those, and that's typical of a mid-sized sized company. So operations will allow you, once the playbook is built, if you're in one of those companies, probably a bunch of CSMs came together, built a playbook, and then might bring it to operations or want to operationalize it in a customer success platform, then that's when operations can take it over, have a designer make it look amazing, and then make sure that it's kept up to date as your customer needs change and your product changes.
Yes, you're talking about that. I got to thinking a bit about, like, on our end, just building out the assets that we need. Let's say, like, building out a QBR template, iterating until we get to
Mhm.
a place where we're like, yes, this is good, at least for now. But then the hard part is actually like, how do we operationalize this? We have the template, but how do we make sure that it sticks? And something that I've heard you talk about in the past as well has been around enabling the customer success team or customer success managers directly through training. Can you speak more on just like the impact
Yeah.
that a CS ops team can have on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Training is continuous. I love the idea of learning, practicing, and then acting. So that you're doing this on a regular cadence. And again, I have to give kudos to Bright Edge because every Monday morning at 8 a.m., all of us got in a room, we role played, we learned something new about the product. Something was always being updated, and it was so exciting to start the week feeling empowered and enabled. And then we actually would send out a little quiz at the end of that day. And you had until the end of the day to submit it, just 5 or 10 questions. But if they weren't passing with at least 8 out of 10, then that gave the manager an opportunity to work closer with that CSM. And it was rewarding, like as an operations manager, putting these type of training programs together for CSMs. And I believe that, especially right now, we're talking about this great resignation. I have a son who works at a tech company, and the perfect example is he left his company after 8 months, a great company. And I said, Tyler, why are you leaving? You just got there. What are you doing? And he said, I want to be continuously learning. That's what people want. He's 28 years old. That's what people want. They want to be continuously learning. So it's not only helping your customers, but it's helping employee retainment, employee happiness, and the impact they can have on their customers. And that's why training should be a critical part of your operations program.
Love that. And to support that, I think, as I'm looking back at interviewing customer success candidates or even other roles for that matter, there's always this question of like, what's your onboarding process like? Because you're right, people
Mhm.
are looking for that continual enablement, or overall just like, how do I get started? How do I know that I'm going to be supported in what I'm learning so I can hit the ground running? Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about tooling. So, in previous organizations, I was shifting and kind of just taking on whatever tool another team was using that was kind of like us. So, for example, like support was using Intercom. All right, do customer success work in Intercom, or sales is using Salesforce, and so you could manage your customers in that. Can we talk about that a little bit? Like, why
Mhm.
do we feel like we can lump customer success into these other tools, and what are the downsides of that?
Yeah, it's so funny. Again, I'll go back to a maturity model. My first client 4 years ago, I'm so thankful they gave me a chance as a consultant. Indio Technologies, they were using these platforms just ad hoc, logging into different things, and then quickly we realized, and I introduced them to Catalyst. Quickly we realized that having all these disparate systems everywhere was creating a lack of efficiency in CSMs. And we are all burnt out with the number of today, fast forward to today, all burnt out with the number of meetings we have. Studies show that the average human can work with optimal outcomes for about 6 hours. But go look at your calendar. How many meetings do you have? And then follow up. So if you're expected to be on Zoom in front of customers, constantly speaking, doing all that follow up, and then having multiple systems, one, you risk burnout. Two, human error is just prevalent. I mean, it's just obvious it's going to happen. And then three, people are going to stop putting everything that they should be putting into those systems. What is the result? Leadership and CSMs don't have a holistic view of their customers and where they should spend time. So at the beginning of the day, when you feel overwhelmed with the number of emails you have, your brain, as humans, we shut down, and then we become less than efficient in our roles. And that's why I'm a huge advocate. With all of the APIs out there, there's zero excuse for not having a central view of your customer and then how to be efficient in your practice as a customer success professional. And that's why I'm a huge advocate of, yes, feel free to use these systems, but how can we put them all together so that we have one view of the customer experience?
I love that, and the human error comment speaks to me a lot. uh, One of the processes that I was like, we need to build here is at risk accounts, and when do we flag them, and what should we do next? And I felt like, you know, with every CSM, we're kind of approaching things differently. We're flagging things at different times. We maybe prioritize things differently. So having a streamlined way where everyone is using the same process, and sharing with the rest of the team definitely helped us out and just be more consistent. So as you're working with these clients, when do you hear that they're desperately needing a some sort of tool to help them? At what stage?
Yeah, so I think it just depends on the complexity of the product. Right now, we're speaking to not a client yet, but someone who's interested in working with us. They only have sub 100 customers, but they also have one CSM, and the VP doesn't have time to be putting. I asked him, how much time are you spending putting together reporting for your leadership? And he said at least a day and a half, where I'm getting data from all different systems and plugging it to Excel. It's like the worst part of my job right now. And so what am I trying to display here is, it doesn't matter how many customers you have. What you should bring in a customer success platform when you have enough data and customers to be able to put in one central place that will tell a story, because you can't give a spreadsheet to a board member and expect them to create the story. You have to do the storytelling with the data. And if you're wasting time in spreadsheets when you could just have all that data automated in a platform that will share the dashboard that tells the story, then you can focus on what really matters. And that's building relationships with your customers, not drowning in the weeds of spreadsheets. So that's what I think it should be. There's no magic number. Every company is different.
Yeah, agreed. And definitely what we're seeing here on the Catalyst side as well. And now thinking about your experience as one of the top consultants in customer success, when do you feel like teams are bringing you on, and what do they want to talk about? What do they want to work on with you?
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, I'm seeing more and more with VC and PE firms this idea of centers of excellence. They want a library of content, best in class technology recommendations for their customers, or I'm sorry, their portfolio companies. So in that area, they're bringing us in to not only work with their portfolio companies, but also to help build these centers of excellence. And then for direct customers, it really depends on what they need, whether they want an assessment of their organization, where should we invest, what technology do we need, what kind of leader should we be hiring, help us build playbooks. So we typically start with an assessment, and that includes people, process, and systems. Then we help them build their playbooks, their customer journeys, and from there, we're often helping them implement technology and doing coaching and education. I think you can have the best systems in the world, but if you don't have someone to manage them and you don't have someone to enable your CSMs to leverage their power, then you're really wasting a lot of money on technology. So that we help across the whole customer and employee experience. I hate saying this word post sales, but anything after a partnership is created, an opportunity is closed, that's when the real work begins. We're part of that partnership.
Yes, to borrow from Rob Dollywall, it's a sell and sell again motion, but yeah, it
Yes.
is post sale. Um, and now there's a question that came in from someone, Tasha. She says, how many customers do you feel are the sweet spot for a CSM's book of business?
Mm. This is such a loaded question. If you read the book the book From Impossible to Inevitable, the founder of SaaStr wrote it, and Jason Lemkin. And he said in that book several years ago, 2.5 million. And I kind of laughed. I think he may have different hypothesis now. It really depends on the product. I mean, if you look at Salesforce, you have CSMs that are managing maybe two customers, and that book of business is $20 million. You have others managing 50 or 100 or 200, and then their book of business is sub 1 million. So it really depends on the product and what are the motions and what kind of technology do you have in place to enable those CSMs. Do you have a community, a knowledge base, a good support system that will enable customers to help themselves? And then if you do, and you have a customer journey that has some automated communication, then you may have a bigger book of business because there's so much automation. And if you're using a customer success platform, you will know by health score, by actions within the product and other criteria that your company is deemed important on how to manage your day. But if you don't have those tools, then you probably will have a smaller book of business because you're doing so many operational and administrative tasks that are taking you away from what you should be doing. And that's creating a proactive relationship.
I love that, and definitely resonates with me in customer success, especially, as we're thinking about Sid's story of how he went from 3 to 20. At 3, there's not much that, I can take on as a CSM, because a lot of those processes that should be automated just weren't in place. So I'm having to spend a lot of time doing things that, that just takes up a lot of time. But we started implementing things like having a webinar that was on demand. I had a lot of customers that wanted new training, or a new CS leader shows up, or a new CS ops person shows up. And so setting up sessions to take them through the tool. And then once we introduce on-demand webinar, boom, time back in my day. So it's like these little things that we can roll out to give CSMs more space to take on more accounts. But like you said, there really just isn't a magic number or a magic price or revenue that we can say, like, yes, with that revenue, then give them X book of business.
Right.
I know we are getting to the end here, but I think about CS leaders that are like, okay, great, this is all fantastic, but it's hard to, it's hard to make this ask when you don't have anything to really like show for it, when maybe your team isn't being consistent, or maybe you don't have the insights because you don't have CS ops to help you get the insights, or you don't have the right tools. So what would you tell those CS leaders that are in that predicament right now, where it's like, I don't have a way to really tell the story? Where should they start?
Yeah, I would start with any data that you can compile, whether it's looking at your calendar over the course of the month and how much time are you spending on administrative versus customer, your book of business, what can be automated. Just get a whiteboard, a white piece of paper, and start writing all those things down. And then from there, start bucketing. And once you have the buckets, and what are you spending time on versus what could you be spending time on? And then how much money are you leaving on the table that can be spent on building relationships, finding new opportunities for upsells, cross sells, renewals? Once you paint that story in a financial way or perspective, you have the ears of your CEO, your finance team, the people who control the purse. And then you can start helping, for example, looking at, well, what are the salaries? What are the requirements? Building that resume of what this person would do and what would their impact be on the team after, let's say, a quarter, a year. And that's how I would look at it. Just start with a white paper, documenting what you're doing, what you could be doing. How can an operations manager fill that delta so that you're doing what you should be, and that's being proactive with your customers.
Absolutely. Excuse me. And one last question that's very on topic with what we're talking about. It's from Tyler Jackson, and he asks, as a new CSM, how would you recommend pitching a tool like Catalyst to a director of CS when there is no strategy or playbook in place?
Yes, this is so common. This is an opportunity to build that playbook. So that playbook, and if you want to position it in the way that you might get your director's attention, is put your shoes in your directors. So what's in it for me? If I'm your director, explain to me, what am I going to get out of it? Make your director the star of the show. That means your director will be able to have better reporting for leadership, better board decks for the board members, and then be able to manage better, understanding what do the customers need? What does my team need? How can I be a better servant leader to my team so that they're more effective, efficient, happy? That's how I position it, by putting yourself in their shoes.
Amazing. Emilia, thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge with us. Really appreciate having you here. And yeah, I hope that the session was helpful to everyone. I think we have just like 30 seconds left, and Ben is here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. I'm just here to kick you off. So no, all worked out fantastic. As much as it pains me. That was fantastic. Thank you, Emilia.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Thanks. Bye everyone.